You're here for supporting math skills at home, play-based learning for your preschooler, and I'm really excited about this topic. Math is one of those topics where I did not like it growing up, and as a teacher and now my role here, I really enjoy this for early childhood, and I think if we can make it something that is fun, I know children will enjoy math much more when they're older, unlike I did. So hopefully this will be encouraging and provide you with some information. My name is Jamie, and I am the Family Engagement Specialist here at Child Care Answers. I have been a preschool teacher for many years, and now I've taken on the role here as a Family Engagement Specialist. And what I do is I just help families with finding childcare, also just supporting them in the process of maybe finding means to pay for childcare. We are a part of the Child Care Resource and Referral Network. There are 5 agencies across the state, and they all do the same thing. We all help support families, and we all help support child cares and growing capacity for their programs, and we all help support community organizations as well as businesses as they are supporting their employees with childcare. You can find us on social media. I really encourage you to follow us if you don't already. All right, so today we're gonna talk about what is math development, just go a little bit into some of those kindergarten readiness topics, and then dive really deeply into ideas that we can have for playing with math at home. So to talk a little bit about the development, there are 5 math skills that you'll really see your preschooler develop in, and those are number sense, sorting and classifying, measurement and time, geometry, and computation and algebra. And computation and algebra, especially algebra, a lot of people are like, what? And but there are basic ways and like patterning that might not seem algebraic, but they're really those foundational stepping stones that children need to have before they start doing actual algebra. So the first step is number sense and numeracy, and this is the idea of counting, recognizing quantities, and understanding written numerals. This is probably the one that most people are like, oh yeah, this is math for early childhood. And I saw a lot of teachers struggle with this, and a lot of parents struggle with the idea that children need to know their numbers, like their 1, 2, 3s and what they mean. And this is an important skill, and this is something we are going to talk about working on, but it's not the only skill when it comes to math. And really the skill really starts with counting, and counting with what is called one-to-one correspondence. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. But also there's a lot of information here about using math vocabulary such as equals to, fewer than, less than, more than, first and last, all those words that we talk about and use every day. It's really just about bringing those to light as we're having conversations with our children at home, or even giving them directions like first put on your shoes, then put on your coat. You're helping them with those basic math vocabulary in your everyday. So you're already doing math at home, even if you recognize it or not. So math, the stepping stone starts with one-to-one correspondence when it comes to counting. And this is the ability to touch objects and count them as you go. So I'm gonna show my screen here, and you can see that this is the number 4. We all know this is the number 4. But what one-to-one correspondence is I believe you can see my little blue dot there, is touching it and saying 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're counting each object and touching it as you go. A lot of children will line up their cars in a nice little row for a parking lot, and then maybe you can encourage them to count their cars as they're playing and touching them one as they go. And this is working on that one-to-one correspondence. Okay, so once they have that, and then you want to start going a little bit deeper. And this is where the number sense starts to grow as you go from your younger preschoolers who are solidifying that one-to-one correspondence to your older preschoolers who may already have that, but now they're working on recognizing groups of numbers more than just counting numbers. And there's so many ways you can help them work on that one-to-one. There's so many ways you can help them recognize those groups. One-to-one, you can use muffin tins and have them put like one cupcake liner in each muffin tin as you're making cupcakes or muffins. And then when it comes to like recognizing groups of numbers, you can maybe just put like 4 candles out on the table and say like, how many candles do we have here? 4. Let's make 4 cupcakes for the candles. And or you can even play a lot of dice games because that's the basic start of those recognizing those groups of numbers. And actually, when you see a group of dots or a group like you see on a dice, that's called subitizing, and that's the skill and the ability to recognize a group of numbers without counting it. And it's a foundation for mental math. And so to practice this, I just wanted to play a quick little game. I'm going to show you the screen, the next screen for like 3 seconds, and then I'm going to go to another screen. So I want you to look at that screen for 3 seconds, and then I'm going to ask you a series of questions and see if you can answer them. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so from that screen, how many blue dots did you see? Okay, now how many pink dots did you see? Okay, now all together, that would make 7. So let's go back and see if you're right. The concept is, this is really advanced and you're not doing this with your preschoolers, but like it would be something that you would do. You can show them like this screen and this and be like, how many is this? And your older preschoolers are going to start recognizing, wait, that's 4 without having to count it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I wanted to show you a little bit about how number sense develops throughout the preschool years. Your children are learning how to sort and classify. Young children love to sort, and it starts as the beginning of infancy when they're starting to recognize differences in colors and patterns and shapes. And then for preschoolers, they are starting to sort at the younger age into like different colors or like different fruits or different vegetables. But then by 4 and 5, they're starting to sort by 2 characteristics. So maybe you have a group of blocks that are full of colors and different shapes. So they're sorting the blue cube blocks into one category, and then maybe the yellow cone blocks into another category. And they start to sort things by multiple characteristics. Examples at home may look like when you get home from the grocery store, you can have your preschooler help sort the groceries into different categories. Or when you're doing the laundry, maybe they're sorting them by color to help you put the whites with the whites, the colors with the colors, or maybe the shirts with the shirts and the socks with the socks. So there's different ways that you're already doing sorting at home. Measurement time is another one that is important for preschool, but it's not looking and reading a clock. And I had somebody tell me when I did this presentation earlier, you know, like even reading clocks these days, everyone just looks at your phone. So that's a skill that is not as relevant anymore, even though it is an important skill to know as well. But for young children, especially in preschool, we're starting with concepts of time in the sense of before, after, during, or like the idea of like, this is morning time and this is what we do in the morning versus at night, we put on our pajamas and brush our teeth and get into bed and go to sleep. So they're learning that kind of time as opposed to like, it's 3 o'clock and this is what 3 o'clock looks like. And then for measurement, they're using any tool really to measure things. They might use blocks to measure how high the couch is, or they might be in the kitchen cooking with you and maybe they're not filling up the full to the maximum for your 1 cup of ingredients, but they're exploring with it and they're practicing it, and you're working with them to teach them that, oh, if it says 1 cup, this is what 1 cup full looks like versus a half a cup. And maybe you don't pull out the half a cup, you just show them with that full cup so they can see that like a half is half of a full. And so they're learning those concepts as they're just engaged in everyday things at home. Then you have geometry, and this is one that's pretty common that we think about a lot with preschoolers, just shapes and colors and maybe some patterns. But with preschoolers, the older preschoolers, I think it's important to note that they're also starting to do 3D shapes and understanding 3D blocks and shapes and what those look like. So I always encourage families to, if you see a dice or a block, to call it a cube as opposed to a square, because they are able to, and they are working on recognizing those 3D shapes. And then also preschoolers are starting to learn how to make new shapes using two different ones. So like if you take a square and a square and you put it together, you're going to get a rectangle, or maybe a triangle and a triangle, you might get a square depending on the shape of the triangle. Also, geometry is about using positional words. So above, below, to the side. It's having that idea of spatial awareness, which I know all of us know that puzzles are important for young children, but this is kind of where puzzles fit into learning, is in this geometry realm of math. Okay, and then lastly, we have computation and algebra. And this is how children start to be able to take numbers apart and then put them back together. A great example of this is using the abacus, as you can see in the picture. Each row has 10, and the child's moving the rows and exploring that 3 on this side and 7 on this side. You put it together, it still equals 10. And then they can play around. Maybe if I put 5 on one side and 5 on the other, and then push them together, it still equals 10. So they're exploring with those concepts of numbers. And also this is where patterning comes into play as well. And patterning is a skill that I think we see all the time, and we can express all the time. If you're making, like playing with beads and making jewelry at home, you can make patterns. Even if you're playing with Play-Doh, you can just like roll little balls and make patterns there. Even things in the kitchen can be really easy, or with toys during play, for just showing what patterning is. Well, all in all, math and development and literacy development is super important for kindergarten readiness, but the most important skill prior to kindergarten is really their ability to just have that social and emotional awareness of what's going on around them and within them to be able to learn. And I really appreciated this quote on the screen here. Readiness doesn't mean just knowing the academic basics. It means the child has a willing and confidence in the process of learning, in a healthy state of mind. They're willing to learn and they're ready to learn. And so that's why I wanted to talk about play-based learning, because I really feel like it incorporates both of these. It incorporates the need for social emotional development, but then also you can tie in math. And real quickly, play-based learning is just that. They're learning through play. They're engaged in learning, and they're developing different approaches to learning. So maybe they're promoting curiosity. They're initiating problem solving and practicing that idea of focused attention. So an example would be taking or adding blocks away from a tower. This encourages concepts of comparison and measurement, or completing puzzles and building problem solving and strategy building skills. And then lastly, singing and dancing. They're experimenting and counting and practicing with rhythms and patterns. So this is the type of things, math concepts, that your children are learning just by playing in blocks or with puzzles, or even just with music. So we're going to dive in with some ideas now, and that's how we're going to finish our time together. I have a whole slew of ideas. So if you ever have any questions about these, and if I go too fast, just let me know and you can type in the chat box. The first section of play is the idea of pretend play. All children are super imaginative in their play, whether it's using blocks or playing with dolls or Barbies or with cars. They're using their imagination to make something happen with their play. So one of the things that you can do is take real measuring tools for the kitchen and have them in their dramatic play. Maybe you have a place in your home where they can play with their dolls, or they have a play kitchen. Take your real measuring tools and put them in there and let them explore with those. Or you can just have them help you cook in the kitchen, as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a huge event. Maybe you're making a salad and you cut up all the peppers and you want them to pour the peppers in the salad. Give them a measuring tool and say, can you fill up 1/2 cup with peppers? And they can fill it up and pour it in the salad. It keeps them busy, and they're really not doing too much other than just pouring and dumping, but they're also learning concepts of what 1/2 is and what is full and what is empty. You can provide safe measuring tools to construction and building play. If you have blocks, give them a ruler, see what they do with it. In the picture, you can see the child has a level. Those are really easy to find at any hardware store, or if you have some in your garage, and they're really safe. They're not too, unless you get the really heavy duty metal ones, but there's a lot of fun ways you can do that. I know we have a magnetic one that we put on our refrigerator, and you can practice using tools like that to show how long things are and what it means to be even. So that could be a fun way to engage in math. Have your child open a vet office. Tell them, take all your stuffed animals, here's a piece of paper, clipboard, rulers, even like a weight, and they can pretend to be a vet and record how the dog is feeling. They're practicing sorting stuffed animals into like, oh, they're not feeling well, they're feeling well. And you can ask questions like, why do you think that? And it opens up conversations of why they're sorting and classifying things in different ways. And then you have the idea of just opening a market or doing pretend food, making pretend food into like a grocery store. All you need is either tape, or you can get those little, I don't know, those garage sale stickers is what I call them. That's what I know them as, but those little circle stickers that like come off really easily and they're not like super adhesive. And they can write like numbers on them, like maybe this is 1 penny and this is 2 pennies, and you just give them like some pennies to play with, and they can pretend like they're buying and exchanging and learning about currency and money and counting. And there's a lot of learning there that just is happening naturally. Art play and art and getting creative is something I am passionate about. And I know it's not always something that we want to do because it can feel messy and overwhelming. So I wanted to give you a couple ideas that were just more simple, in the sense that it's not going to take a lot and it's not going to make your kitchen into a war zone. It's just going to be something that you can pull out the markers, or you can pull out the Play-Doh and do something real quick. And one of them is literally just giving them a blank piece of paper and having them draw, and then asking them questions about that drawing. So on the screen, you can see a drawing that a child did, and some questions that you can ask that are math related are like, how many people are in this family? In this picture on our screen, we see 2 people, so they can count 1, 2. Who's the tallest? And maybe there's a reason why they think one is taller than the other. Maybe they say the one in the red is taller because their hair is taller. And you can talk about who's the tallest in your family and have those conversations. And then you can add the idea of spatial awareness in there by asking questions like, what can you add under their feet? There's a big open white space I see. Where could they be? What do you put under? And maybe they put grass, or maybe they end up being on the moon, and that sparks the creativity, but then also you're using the language that is foundational for math. And then also there's tons of great math books out there. You can just put in Google like math children's books, and you're going to get a lot of ideas. This book is cute. It's called Peg, Cat, and the Pizza Problem, and it's about like cutting pizzas into halves, into fourths. I would recommend this maybe for your older preschoolers, but this is easy to do with Play-Doh. You can read the book and then give them Play-Doh and maybe like a Play-Doh pizza cutter, and they can practice making pizzas with the Play-Doh and then cutting them in half and giving like mom a piece or grandma a piece, and really explore what that looks like just by using Play-Doh and like a little Play-Doh cutter. Not too messy and not too extravagant, and something you can put in a box and pull out whenever. Music and movement, again, is super important. There's so many different ways that you can incorporate patterning and tempos and rhythms. You can create patterns with musical instruments. On the screen, the first box on the top left is an example of like an activity. If you wanted to sit down with your child and like actually do an activity, one you could do is just make a paper and divide it in half and color one side orange and one side green, and then put a musical instrument on either side. And it doesn't even have to be a musical instrument. It can be like an egg filled with rice, like a plastic egg filled with rice, and maybe like a pot and a wooden spoon, because those make sounds and those can be musical instruments. And then you provide like little squares, and they can color in and make their own song and write their own pattern, and then they play that. So they would play like Jingle Bells with orange and then hit the block for the green and go back and forth. Again, this is something if you want to do more of an activity with your child. And I really like this because I'm very passionate about music and writing music from early ages. So I think this is a fun way just to do something outside of the box. But then also just providing instruments and different ways to do it, and turning on songs of different tempos in your home. Just have Alexa play, something slow or their favorite fast song, and give them a pot and a pan and let them pretend to drum with it. And then also you have singing finger play songs about counting. And I completely forgot to put a picture there, but that would be a picture of children playing and singing songs about counting. And that could be something like 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. Honestly, you just Google finger play songs and you're going to get another list of songs that you can do. And then movement, something as simple as hopscotch, but also you could take a dice and then take like a block, and on the block just write with your Sharpie like different movements that you could do. So like in the picture there, you see it says jump. So if your child rolls 1 and then rolls jump, that means they need to jump once. This is a family game you can play that incorporates movement and math, especially if you have a child who's not quite ready for a board game. This could be a fun way to start those concepts. And then also, just like as you're going on hikes and you're walking around the neighborhood or the grocery store, you can count things, or you can say like, oh, let's jump 3 times. How many sticks are we going to jump over? Who jumped higher? And there's a lot of ways just to do that naturally. And then lastly, if you ever go bowling, or if you have a bowling kit at home, or if you want to create a bowling kit, there's lots of ways to practice subtraction there, just by talking about, oh, I had 5 and then I knocked 3 down. How many are left over? And just by saying it and expressing that language, you're using foundational vocabulary for subtraction and for number sense. Engineering is a really big hot topic for early childhood, especially if you've heard the word STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So I wanted to touch a little bit about engineering. Engineering is just the concept of planning and then building and putting something together. So when it comes to engineering at home, I think it all lies in just the challenges we give our children, because sometimes they want to do something with you and you just don't have time because you have to cook dinner, you have to finish laundry. And so it could be an easy way to not pretend you're doing it with them, but to give them this idea that like, I'm going to give you a challenge and see if you can do it. And then I'm going to come over and check it. And it can be an engineering challenge. Like, how many more blocks do you need to make my tower the same size as your tower? And so you can walk away, let them explore, and then come back and then give them another challenge. Maybe the next challenge is, what happens if you take one off the top of your tower? And then they take it off the top and they say, oh, nothing really happened. What if you try to take a block off the middle? And so it's like that whole Jenga effect. They're going to find out that it's not as easy. And then if they take one off the bottom, they're going to see that, oh, that's probably not the best way to take things away from something that is vertical. And it's exploring as they're learning how to put things together and take them apart. And then also you can talk about length. It's like, this wall that you created is as long as my hand. Is it as long as your hand? And so you can start talking about like different ways that, hands are different sizes. Therefore, like, the wall might be 2 of my hands, but it's 4 of your hands. Whose hand is bigger? And those are complex thoughts. And a lot of challenges can be as simple as, I bet you can't make this tower as tall as the table, or I bet you can't balance the tower on one block. But you can get creative too. And then lastly, I want to touch base on card and board games. I know that we all at home might have different age children, and they can be challenging when you have maybe a toddler and then you have a 6-year-old who's like, I know how to do this, and the toddler who thinks they know how to do it. So board games can be challenging at home. So that's why, you can do things like the dice, and you roll the dice and then you jump and you play it that way. But you can also do basic card games. Maybe with Uno, you have, let me think about Uno real quick. Uno's probably more for your older children, but something like Go Fish or War, maybe you're not using numbers with Go Fish. If you're using it with your younger children, you're just like doing the actual fish cards. But and you can change like War, maybe you're partnering with the toddler and you're working together, and then you're letting the preschooler have more ownership and trying it themselves. There are also classic board games like Candyland and Snail's Pace and Chutes and Ladders. All of these have math concepts that are just embedded in the game itself. There are math games that are specific to math. There is this Pete the Cat game called Pete the Cat and the Missing Button. Preschoolers love Pete the Cat. It's just like the best. I've found that any book I've read, they just somehow relate to it and enjoy it. I think it's repetitive, it's fun and funny. And so if you can tie a game to a character they enjoy, then oftentimes they're more interested in it. So if that is Elsa and you find an Elsa math game, then by all means dive into that and embrace the Elsa or Dora or Pete the Cat or what have you. There's so many different characters that children embrace and love. So yeah, I would just go ahead and do that and just lean into it a little bit. And then you can create your own math games. You can use cardboard, those stickers. This is a picture of like an equation machine. And I know that sometimes we want our children to be experimenting with math at maybe a deeper level. And this is one of those that really helps them visualize it. And then they think they have this like machine, and you can make it into a monster with 2 eyes, or you could make it into cups with just the way it looks there. But the idea is that you put like toys in on one side, and you put 3 toys here, 4 toys here, and then they come and meet in the middle to make 7. So it is just a simple like equation machine, but there are ways that you can maybe tie it into engineering and say like, hey, how can we make this like look like a real machine or a monster or whatever they're interested in? Because again, tying back to their interest is always key when it comes to things like that. So I tried to share some ideas that I hope some are new, some were maybe old, but goodies. I know one of my favorite things to do at home, like I said, is music. And I really like to embrace just turning on music of different styles, from like classical music all the way to something that has like a hip hop beat that's more fast in its movement. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that I enjoy doing and trying to experience that. Great to ask questions per method. Yeah, with drawing. Yeah, I really appreciate that, Jessica. I do think, oftentimes it's easy just to give a piece of paper and to let our children draw and to walk away. But when they bring it back and it's just a simple couple questions, you're promoting math thinking, but then they're also like engaged in that creative process, and they might not even know that like, hey, mom's trying to make me do math right now. And so, yeah, I appreciate that, because I think that's something simple, just we can integrate into our days about math. Great, thank you so much. And again, if you need anything, my name is Jamie, and I am my content expertise here at Child Care Answers is preschool and then also school age, and ranging anything from behaviors to literacy math to special education. So if you do have more questions about kindergarten readiness or math or literacy, or even just, hey, my child's been acting this way and I'm not sure about like if this is appropriate, like please feel free to email me. Again, follow us on social media. I know that we have a lot of things that just come up every day that just might be helpful for you or interesting as you are raising your little one. Okay, well, thank you so much. And I am here if you need anything.